Hello, everyone. Welcome to 10 Minutes Astrology Podcast. It is a podcast to offer you an easy way to learn astrology from scratch. 10 Minutes Astrology aimed at a beginner. You don't need to know anything about astrology. I'm Rod Chang, professional astrologer and the co-founder of Academy of Astrology.
And I am Alejo Lopez. I'm also a psychologist and astrologer and a tutor at the Faculty of Astrological Studies.
So before we start, I have an announcement to make this Friday on the 18th February at 8 p.m. UK time. Alejo and I, we're going to have our very first live stream podcast on YouTube.
Yes.
Well, yeah, and this is a kind of an extended version of our 10 minutes astrology. It's like what we're doing now, and on the basic astrology for the beginner, but we have like a, extended maybe like a from 30 minutes to 40 minutes learn, so we can practice together. We can talk about a little bit more about what we learned for last couple of weeks, and it'll be fun and interesting because we call it Astronight Live. So we really kind of a learning and entertaining at the same time, and it will be very, very interesting. So if you are free on the Friday, so please join us on the live on the YouTube so we can really learning things together. So, well, last week we are talking about the earth
elements,
elements and earth sign. So today we're going to talk about another element. I think we are going to focus on water element. So the three signs related to water element are Cancer, the crab, and Scorpio or Pisces. I was thinking about it. I try to avoid it because I don't want to sound too ridiculous. But
sorry.
No, it's interesting because most of my students say that too, because the ancient. Okay, lupus. So, okay, let me start again. The Cancer, the crab, Scorpio, and the Pisces, the fish.
Yeah.
Okay, but let me come back seriously. Remind you again, we are not talking about the sun sign only, okay? I will keep repeating it until you hate me. But we talking about we talk about sign, the characteristic, and according to the element. So later when we learn the planet, and we can put it together like what we do now with the sun and the moon and the ascendant. And when we're more familiar, we will add a planet like Mercury, Venus, Saturn to Pluto in. Okay, so let's start with water sign. Alejo.
Okay, let's start with the water sign. So last time we were talking about the earth and we were thinking, okay, let's look at mountains, let's look at forests, and let's look at fields and how we relate to them in order to understand the characteristics of earth. So now I'm saying, let's do the same thing with water. So let's look at lakes, let's look at the sea, let's look at rivers. And I would say, let's also look at swamps to try to think what the element of water may be. So one of the things that I always relate to the idea of water is life began in water, right? And, you have all of these microorganisms in water that we may not see, but they are there. Then another thing that we may relate with the element of water, if we think about the sea, is the idea of depth, something that is very, very deep, something that we may not ever completely reach or grasp. And talking about grasp, another interesting thing of the water element is that it's very hard to grasp and you need to contain it somehow.
Yeah.
So it's changeable in a way that it will take the shape of whatever container it has.
Indeed.
It doesn't have a shape of its own.
Yeah.
And then also this idea of flowing water. We use water to cleanse our bodies, to cleanse ourselves. So this is the idea that if water flows, then there's health. But if water gets stuck, then we have a swamp and it may not be so healthy. Sorry. No, go.
I like that idea because what I learned from our friend Marcus Pratchett, he's talking about his study of the ancient astrology and the traditional way, and that himself is also medicine astrologer because he's a herbalist. Then when you talk about ancient view of water, and he talking about the water is like eliminate toxic from our body in the ancient view. But today's view is the same. Water function is carry the things out.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. Totally. Yeah. So If we take all of this to a psychological level, so we first relate to this with like our experiential level, and then we take it to a psychological level. So water signs or planets in water signs will probably be very deep. Will probably be connected with something that's deep, which not easily grasped at the beginning, and which can be may not have a shape of its own. So it can be very changeable according to the container, so according to what's around. So it's about sensibility, this idea of sensing what's in the field, you know. It's interesting what you were saying. We need to consider this all of the planets. So if you don't mind, I will make a small mention. I think maybe good. For instance, Mercury rules how we talk or how we think. So a Mercury in a water sign will probably be talking or thinking in an emotional way. In an emotional way, what I mean is that they may be very sensitive to their environment, what's happening around them.
Yeah, I think there is one thing to think about. It is like because they are more like a hold back or laid back, and when you say the sensitive or they reactive, so it's more like they receive the message from the outside, from the other people, and they give a response.
Yeah, I would say so.
Doesn't mean they don't say it. They just, you know, they just waiting for the stimulation and give a response. And another thing about the water sign I like to add it is more about the reflection, right? Because
exactly, yes.
Yeah, and that is kind of a key word for me for the water sign.
Yeah, it's I also like to relate it with the idea of, you know, of the tides. So the water is always in motion, and that's why I think it brings this idea of reflection, because it's never the same. It's never one thing. You know, you need to dip in to see what it is. And when you approach water, if it's clear waters, you might see your own reflection. So it's also about reflecting and seeing, and because this idea of depth, that you need to go very deep, you may need time to go through water. I think what's interesting also, we were talking about earth and water, and each element has its own speed, and earth and water are kind of slow elements. They need their own time to move and to do things.
Part a little bit different from, because last week we talked about the earth, so it's very difficult to avoid to compare these two different things, because when we talk about earth sign, they are very practical, they are reliable. What you say is what you get, sometimes more like that. But when you start talking about the water sign, and with that the depths you have to go in through. For me, maybe you know, for me, I don't have many planet in water sign in my chart. So for me, that sounds is a little bit very subtle and mystical.
I think so. Yeah, I would agree with that. Yes, I would agree with that. Yes. Also because, you know, that this idea underwater, you cannot see the shapes properly. If you go underwater, you don't see things. Everything dissolves. So I think the idea of the dissolution of the self or the dissolution of whatever planet it is there lets you connect with something that's beyond the frontier of yourself. So I think it may become mystical or spiritual, or maybe it's what you were saying before, maybe very reflective, maybe very in touch with its surroundings.
One thing I like to discuss with you, I think for beginner they can still understand, and is what I favorite mostly is when I teach, and for the kind of a popular astrology or you know, high street astrology, when our student or our audience talking about a water sign, they usually use the word emotional, and they usually like talking about these three signs, either Pisces or Cancer or Scorpio, like they are too emotional, they are crazy, they are kind of, you know, just like they couldn't control their emotion. But what we see in the astrology is not like this.
Yeah, I think it's about our culture. So basically our culture is very earthy. I think our culture is earth, or maybe air also.
A little bit earth, air, sure.
Yeah, it's like a very pragmatic, we need to produce. So it's like very earthy, and then it's very rational, very mental. So we're going to see that element later, right?
Yeah.
So the world of emotions for us is a mystery. We have let it apart, and we're not trained, we're not educated to deal with it. So if somebody's in touch with their emotions, we think, oh, they're crazy. but they are not. They're actually probably not. Yes.
Yeah, I think another thing, well, just like the ancient astrologer are not describe water sign as a crazy sign. Instead, they say they are calm and laid back. That's how the ancient people say. So next time, if you describe the water sign, please remember they are not too emotional. They are sensitive, but they could be calm and laid back. So let's review a quick review about the keyword of water sign. They are kind of sensitive, receptive, and reflective. They're caring and protective, subtle, mystical, and yes, feeling is important for them. Emotion is feeling for them, but they're definitely not crazy. They could become and laid back. Do you want to add anything in?
No, I think it's good. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So how about this? Just
and maybe I would add that they have a lot of imagination, a lot of intuition.
Oh yeah, imagination. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, that is quite important for water sign, for the Cancer, for Scorpio, and for the Pisces. So how about we add exercise in? Because last time we mentioned about Sun and Moon. How about today we practice a little bit with Ascendant?
Okay, let's do with Ascendant. Yeah. So if we have the Ascendant in water, we said that the keywords for the Ascendant is how we approach life, what we expect life to be, right? And also how other people may see us. So if we relate to all of these ideas with the ideas of water, which is the idea of being reflective, you were saying like being calm, perhaps a little withdrawn before speaking out, before going outside, we would say that we expect life to be a place where we can go deep, where we can reflect on ourselves, where we can get in touch with our emotions. And maybe other people will see that when we first enter a room, when what the first people see in us is that we are empathic, we are intuitive, we may be a little bit mystical, or maybe in touch with some subtle realms that not everybody is so sensitive to.
So this is how the ascendant in the water sign are in Cancer, in Scorpio, and in Pisces. You can, when you appear in front of other people, you could be a little bit more kind of try to hide yourself to in one way, and then so also kind of showing that you're feeling or you're caring too. I think that's in another thing.
Yeah, I'd say so.
So what's the difference between Ascendant and Sun if we have Sun in water sign?
Okay, so if we have the Sun in water sign, it's a tricky difference. Let's see if I'm able to explain it. So if we have a Sun in water sign, then this is what makes us feel alive, right? So when we're in touch with emotions, we become alive. When we can express our inner world, we become alive. When we can care for others, we become alive. Right?
That's so different, I think, between the Sun and the Ascendant. Today, we're not just learning about the quality and the characteristic of a water sign. And look, we make a difference between Ascendant in the water sign, how the different between with the Sun in the water sign. It is so interesting. Thank you, Alejo. And thank you, everyone, for listening to 10 Minutes Astrology this week. We learned a little bit about the water sign, and I really hope you guys enjoy this episode. Please like and subscribe. If you have any question, please send us a message at AOAUK on Telegram. Also, you can email us on the AOA.inquiry@gmail.com. And on the Instagram, you can find me at AOAUKROD, and you can find Alejo at
Liminal Cosmos.
Liminal
Instagram,
Cosmos.
Yes.
Yeah, on the Instagram. So next week, we're going to talk about another element. It's air element. So with air sign, they are Libra, Aquarius, and Gemini. So stay in tune. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.